The Prime Minister has warned of the prospect of economic Hansonism, and she's pointing the finger at the coalition. Julia Gillard's outlined her priorities for economic reform in an address to business leaders in Canberra. She claims that reform consensus is now under serious threat. Her comments cap off a day in Canberra where one of her party's faction leaders delivered a scathing critique of modern Labor. Doug Cameron says rules against speaking out have created a class of political zombies. And the news poll in tomorrow's Australian will link a big fall in the bush for Labor to the Murray-Darling water plan. Political reporter Susan McDonald.
Limbering up for another week of Parliament.
Yeah, no pressure.
The Prime Minister is ready to do battle over healthcare reform.
Do you come back with lots of bruises and
I was actually
bumps?
injured.
Only it's Julia Gillard's backbench that's itching to flex its muscles.
They are stifled in the caucus, they are stifled in the public. And so people see the Labour Party having no values and no vision on a whole range of issues, and I think that must change.
Confronted by Labor's falling primary vote and a leakage in support to the Greens, Labor's left wants a more progressive voice to be heard in areas like climate change and gay marriage. A key player is calling for restrictions on debate to be lifted.
It seems to be like having a political lobotomy. You know, your brain is just ripped apart. You can't think about things. You're not allowed to talk about things. And really, you know, we don't want zombie politicians.
Doug Cameron says Labor MPs should be able to vote against party decisions without being expelled. But the most senior member of the left won't allow it.
I want our caucus to be a place of debate, of ideas generation. I want that to happen in caucus committees and in caucus itself. But we come from a political party that believes we are strengthened by being members of a team, and the way the team works is we have those discussions internally and work things through our own processes.
It may not be time for a new paradigm in the Labor Party, but in Parliament the new dynamics are at work and the coalition is seeking to take advantage.
The member for Wentworth.
The opposition's Malcolm Turnbull has introduced his bill for a Productivity Commission inquiry into the National Broadband Network.
It is simply an attempt to establish the facts.
That bill appears unlikely to pass, with the independent Tony Windsor unconvinced. But he may soon be called on to support another coalition push, Joe Hockey's campaign for banking reform.
Let's wrap it all up into the work of a full review of the financial system. A son of Wallace, a granddaughter of Campbell, whatever you will.
The Shadow Treasurer has listed 9 suggestions of his own, including more power for the consumer watchdog to investigate collusion. Wayne Swan is open to the idea.
It is always worthwhile examining what more could be done to promote competition in the banking system. The government has always got a weather eye open for that.
But the coalition's economic team's recent contributions to debates over the dollar and interest rates have become the subject of scorn from the Prime Minister. In an address to business leaders, Julia Gillard has lashed out at the opposition, saying that reform consensus is now under serious threat.
In our country, we are hearing rising voices against reform, not just in the community as a whole, but in major political parties as well. And strikingly in this Parliament, in the once reform-advocating Liberal Party. If a strain of economic Hansonism takes hold on the Conservative side of politics in a Parliament which is so finely balanced, our long-term prosperity is at real risk.
It's a charge the opposition denies.
The biggest danger that this government faces is policy paralysis. We've not seen any reforms from this government.
The government's moving to deal with another part of its reform agenda, water. The Minister has released crucial legal advice for the Murray-Darling Basin plan. It shows social and economic factors are just as important as the environment, and Tony Burke wants the Basin Authority to take note.
It's clear from this advice that environmental, economic and social considerations are central to the Water Act, and that the Basin Plan can appropriately take these into account.
The mishandling of this policy area by the government has contributed enormous angst, an enormous upset, an enormous fear in the communities that I represent and the communities that run all the way down to the basin's mouth.
The government's handling of the proposed water cuts has been linked to a drop in support for Labor in the latest news poll. In the two-party vote, the coalition is ahead of Labor 52% to 48%. A news poll published in the Australian newspaper says Labor has suffered a 6-point plunge in primary support outside capital cities. Susan McDonald, Lateline.